Hi, Kate.
What's up,
Welcome to Do you have your shit together? Our shit show with Kate and Beck. Name still to be determined because there's a lot of podcasts out there called The Shit Show.
There's a lot of shit going on out there.
There is.
So much shit. Yeah.
A lot of people like to talk about their shit shows. Yeah.
Oh.
So I was just asking you if you're ready to go, and you said, "Do I look ready?" And you look ready, but you didn't sound ready. You made a noise like maybe you weren't quite ready.
Am I ever ready? Really? I don't know if I'm ever really ready. I'm trying to be ready, and I got all my stuff ready. Observe my backgrounds, and I have clothes on that are acceptable for being viewed.
You look gorgeous. You absolutely look gorgeous.
Thank you, darling. I'm feeling a little
candles
self-conscious about my nails.
What? Were you lighting candles? Is that what I saw you doing before?
Yeah. What were you doing? I saw you doing something.
I was looking for.
There it is.
As
the illustrated Zen poet.
Yes. Here's the back cover.
Oh,
God. Like, tell us about this.
Oh, that's just, the Lady of the Lake. I was always trying to find ways to make fun of him by drawing that cartoon of him on the board. I actually am a very good artist, but I just thought these were funny. So
we will not judge you by these. They are hilarious. Very creative. I love them.
He's in hot water. He's in a stew. I don't know. I was always
just to point out, it does say illustrations by Kate Swartz.
It is me, Kate Swartz.
And this costs $5, so this is a real publication.
Really published.
Yes.
And really paid for by someone.
I don't know if I got mine for free or if I paid for it. I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure you got yours for free. I got a little box of them. I don't know, 20 of them or something. And so I just gave them to my dearest and nearest, of which you have always been, darling. So
the thing is that you didn't sign it.
Oh, so no.
I'll need you to autograph it someday.
I will absolutely autograph it.
Yeah. So yeah, Dr. Blankenberg, I don't know if we said this, was our creative writing teacher at Catonsville High School. And I'm being very specific because lots of people know him and probably, have lots of memories about him. And he died about, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So he's not with us anymore, which is, I remember hearing from my brother that he was on his deathbed so many times since the 90s, that I'm amazed that he lived such a long life. I
remember going to visit him, I think probably fewer than 5 years after I graduated. Just to say, I was in the area, so I thought I'd say hello. And he was so he looks like the cartoon, y'all. If you haven't seen him, huge beard, eyebrows. I pulled one of them to measure it once, 6 inches, huge, ridiculous eyebrows that he would just sort of smooth, and he would fool around with his beard all the time too. And so I went to visit him, and he's sitting. He never sat in an office chair at his desk. He had a jade green leather chair next to his desk, and his desk was generally covered in plants.
Yes.
I don't know where he kept his teacherly things, but that's,
he had that brown satchel that he carried around.
Right. It was a very cool satchel. I do remember that an office chair, a wheelie office chair, ended up in the classroom once, and he sat in it for a minute, and I took off down the hallway with him just to see how fast we could go and see if he'd let me do it. And he did. And
wow.
But anyway, I went to visit him because 5 or 6 years after I graduated, and I walked in the classroom, and he's struggling with this little term, and God damn it, I can't open my snuff box. I'm like, do you want me to get it for you? And he's like, yes, God damn it. So I opened his snuff box for him, and he's like, ever since they, had this no smoking thing on campus, I can't, And I'm like, okay, so just, you're not going to quit smoking? No, I love tobacco. And my doctor says if I don't stop drinking coffee and smoking cigars, I'm going to die. But I just got a cappuccino machine, so guess I'm dying.
Yes.
He picks up his beard and brushes his shirt off, and I'm like, you're a mess. Dr. Gary Blankenberg.
That is a great Dr. Blankenberg story. I love it.
100% Dr. Gary Blankenberg. Gotta love that man.
You know, I got put in his AP English class in 12th grade just because I had already had creative writing with him so many times.
Same.
And I don't think I belonged in that class. And I think not that I wasn't smart enough for it. I was beyond smart enough for it. I know that now, looking back. Yeah. But I didn't have the executive functioning skills to be in an AP class. And literally the only thing we had to do was write one paper. We had to pick a book to read and write one paper. That's all we had to do.
I don't know how both of us got in there. Really, it must have been because we were in creative writing class.
Absolutely. Yeah. So then we were supposed to turn the paper in like halfway through the semester or halfway through. We were on that 4-period day. That was the first year they did a 4-period day, and we only had him for half the year. So halfway through half the year, halfway through that class, we had to turn the paper in. Like around, I don't know, March, maybe February. I don't know, somewhere in that like late winter, early springtime.
A reasonable time to turn it in, probably.
Right, yeah. And of course I picked A Room with a View because I had seen the movie and I loved E.M. Forrester, not because I had anything to say about the story, because no one had taught me how to analyze literature yet. I had never done any literary analysis, or if I did, I didn't know that's what I had done. And I didn't know that was what was expected of me. I thought it was just like a big long book report. Which now I've taken some college courses and I love literary analysis, and I'm actually really annoying to watch movies with because all I do is literary analysis the entire time.
Sure, when was the last time we watched a movie together? We have got to watch a movie together because I love that shit.
Yes. Okay. And preferably one we've already seen, so we can just like
just jab the whole time. And
we already know what's coming, so we can be like, oh my gosh, that was symbolism. Yes. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. Yes.
When was the last? Did we go see Aladdin together in the movie theater?
Probably. That sounds about right.
That was Aladdin. Anyways.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I remember it was I think I told this on the podcast that I got kicked out of physics with a failing grade because I kept cutting it to go to journalism, so they just stuck me in journalism. So I'm sitting in journalism with my new friend, Danielle, and she is writing my paper for me because it is now May, and she is like, I picked you as my friend for senior year because I knew you would be fun to do shit with, like senior cut day, graduation, senior week, all this stuff. And God damn it, I'm not gonna let you fail 12th grade and not graduate with me. I've invested so much time in you already. Right? So she's sitting there trying to write a paper on a book she's never read. I should mention she was our valedictorian, so there was no one better suited to do this for me. And I'm sitting there working on the layout of the poetry section of the newspaper. And Dr. Blankenberg comes walking in to talk to me about the poetry section because he was the one who would send me the poems that would go in the poetry section. And he's standing right behind me and Danielle literally is on her computer. Like, the thing is, the man still used a typewriter, so I don't think he even like acknowledged that there were computer screens in front of him. But when he left, she was like, oh my God, I almost had a heart attack. Do you know how much trouble I could get in? I could get kicked out of school. By Blankenberg. Yeah, Dr. Blankenberg, who when we cut one day, not the entire day, but like we left in the middle of the day and we walked to Coffee Junction and we were getting coffee. Do you remember that day?
I couldn't remember who was with me that day.
Yes, it was me. And he walks in and he's like, hello, ladies. I assume you intend on being back before my class. I know you wouldn't disrespect our visiting.
Because he had a guest. Yeah, he had a guest poet. And then he offered to buy our beverages or something. He's like, I don't care that you're cutting class. All of school is stupid, but you better be back before our guest poet shows up because that would be disrespectful, basically. I was just thinking about that story and I had forgotten that it was you that I was with when we cut. Because we cut a lot, you know.
Oh my God, yes. Especially senior year. It was
Oh,
like,
especially like a third of the time, probably.
Cut chorus 19 days in a row. And then Miss Claspy found me in the hallway somewhere and said, Rebecca, I technically have to fail you for missing my class so many days in a row, and you're not going to graduate. You need my class as a requirement to graduate. Because I had done the thing where instead of getting one music and one art, I just did 4 years of chorus plus a music appreciation class to like opt out of ever taking an art class, because Miss Bonnell at St. Timothy's made me think I was such a horrible artist that I should never take another art class for my entire life. Whole nother podcast. Let's save that for later. So I needed her class to graduate. And so I start, okay, this is awful. I owe her a 9-step amends. She needs to go on a 4-step list somewhere. I fake cried and I told her that I was just so stressed out and devastated because my parents were getting divorced, that I was just having trouble coming to class, and that I needed a class where I could just like take a breather throughout the day. And her class was the only one without homework. And yeah, and she totally like hugged me and was like, it's okay, we'll just pretend like it never happened, but I need you to start coming to class again, and if you're upset, you can go sit in my office. And yeah.
Listen, you say that like you totally bamboozled her, and in a way you did, but you know what? You were going through some rough stuff and you were very busy not processing it.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, you're right. I was cutting class to go like make out with a boyfriend to distract myself from shit that was going on. You're probably right. Probably still was connected to that, even though I didn't make the connection.
Of course it was. Because you were just busy not processing.
Yes, because before my father looked me in the eyes and said, all of that stuff that I raised you on for 17 years, I don't believe in any of it. I just pretended I did so your mom wouldn't be mad. Before that, I was little Miss Goody Two Shoes. I was little Miss like Christian youth group leader. Purity ring, praying in the hallway at the public school every morning.
Remember that?
And her brother with his guitar, like Christian songs. Like, I mean, I never stepped a toe out of line. I was such a good girl. Yes, I was bad at doing homework sometimes and didn't have the best grades, but I had never cut class. The second, I remember my dad said that to me and my brother John, and I went out that night to where they were playing Ultimate Frisbee in that like abandoned parking lot that was like sort of down from St. Agnes Church. And I was like, Carrie, give me a cigarette. And I smoked my first cigarette.
And then you tried to get me to smoke a cigarette not too much later than that. And
I'm sure I did, because I was like, I have discovered
join me.
Thing. They lied to me about tobacco. It's wonderful.
I hated it, but I tried it because you wanted me to. So
you grew up with secondhand smoke, so no doubt you hated it.
Yeah, I was like, this is gross. Both my parents smoke. I smell like smoke all the time. Why would I want to add to it? I probably already have lung cancer.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I did like sort of go off the rails.
Which boyfriend were you making out with all the time? Because I have one of your boyfriend stories.
Oh,
I just thought of this morning.
Oh dear God. Okay, so by the end of senior year, it was Adam. I had like some random boyfriends at the beginning of senior year, but then like towards December, it was December, because we started going out, as the kids would call it back in the 90s, in December, but he had already asked some other girl to the Christmas dance and went with her.
I remember that. I remember the drama.
I know, right? And I went with that guy. I don't remember his name, but he looked like a miniature adult. He had like really short hair. He looked like a politician or a senator that had a mistress and like a dead prostitute in his trunk. Like he looked like one of those guys, like all American good boy. It was like Chris or Eric or.
I know who it is.
Okay.
But now that you've described him like that, I don't want to say who I'm thinking.
No, he was just that really good-looking all-American guy that's going to grow up to be something big, and nothing's ever going to stick to him. Teflon man. And he wasn't like that. That's what he looked like.
He looked like that.
Yeah, he wasn't like that at all. At all. He was like, if I remember correctly, he sort of straddled like the jock nerd. Dividing line. He had like one foot in both worlds. Yeah, he was very smart. He was very kind. He took me as a friend. He put up with my whining all night long. He was a great guy. Yeah.
So I don't know if you considered him a boyfriend or just somebody you made out with for a little bit, but like there was this, yeah, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? So like I was just, as I was driving this morning, I like had to pull my hair out of my collar, and I was like, oh, such a luxurious feeling to have long hair. This is the longest it's been ever in my life. And I think the second longest it has ever been was like junior year, and it wasn't quite this long. It was like almost this long.
Okay.
A couple of inches counts, okay? And so like, and I just haven't, it does. And it just hasn't been that long since junior year. Yeah. No, it was senior year. Yeah, it was senior year. And I was in Math for Dumb People. And the young gentleman in question was seated behind me, and he was a bit of a miscreant. And he was like, hey, I want to talk about Becky. Can you talk to me about Becky? And I'm like, dude, I am actually understanding the math right now. I need to focus because I failed algebra twice. Okay. Twice. And it wasn't the teacher's fault. Mostly he was a genius and very nice. I made terrible dad jokes. It was very entertaining, but I can't math. I don't math. And I was getting like, Math for Dumb People was like practical shit. And I was getting it. And I was like, dude, leave me alone. And he was trying to like get my attention by flicking his lighter right behind my back. So
oh my God.
Feel the heat. I'm like, you fucker, I'm going to ignore you so hard.
Okay. Did his name begin with an A?
Yes.
Okay. We shouldn't say his name on the podcast.
That's why I wasn't. But he was flicking his lighter and my long hair was like down my back. And I heard this. And I smelled it. He had set my hair on fire, and it like God. I lost 5 inches of it, maybe. Like it went all the way up to, like my collar. I had to go get like a bob after that. And I reached back there and I had this handful of black wormy burnt hair, and I was like,
oh my God.
Son of a fuck, you know?
Did you kill him?
What?
Did you kill him?
I murdered him. I wish, you know, I am much more comfortable with physical violence now. But at the time, I was just like, Mr. Bose, this person whose name begins with an A just set my hair on fire. And she's like, well, what do you want me to do about it? God bless her. She was a librarian. She didn't need to be teaching a bunch of miscreant math failures. So I was like, not a damn thing. I'm going to go to the principal's office. She's like, okay, but you need a hall pass. And I was like, great, give me a hall pass. So I went with my handful of burnt hair, and I looked back at the gentleman in question, or the miscreant in question. He was like,
Mr. A.
You know, like he clearly did not mean to set my hair on fire, but he shouldn't have been flicking his lighter against my back. Asshole. Look, I know he was just a teenager. So like in retrospect,
listen,
like
he wasn't just a teenager. He was a teenager from another country. He was a teenager with parents who were first generation. He was a teenager with a lot going on, who was very creative and not your typical mother, especially not for the 90s. And okay, I had such a crush on him for all 4 years of high school. I mean, like he was the one. It didn't matter if he had said, I want to go out with you. If I was like, it didn't matter. I've been like, sorry, boyfriend, you're dumped. I'm going out with him. I've had a crush on him since like day one of 9th grade when I saw him.
He was your Christian Slater, man.
Yes, he was absolutely, like, you've seen the movie Reality Bites. He was Ethan Hawke in that movie. Okay, that was him. Okay.
He was Christian Slater in Pump Up the Volume. He was that guy.
And Mike was Ben Stiller from Reality Bites.
I love Mike so much.
And now when I go back and watch that movie, I'm like, oh my God, Ethan Hawke is such not what I thought at first. I really think Ben Stiller was the right choice. And yeah, I watched that movie completely different as a 40-something-year-old. But just to say, after college, after dropping out of college, so like 1 year after graduation, I ran into Mr. A again, and we had a little bit of a thing. And I didn't think it was much of anything, except maybe more friends with benefits, because if you're so in love with me, why do you have to cover my face to fuck me? It was very strange, right? So I didn't. So when I started dating Mike, apparently I broke his heart, and I'm the one that got away and ruined him for women forever, and it's why he treats women so badly. Blah blah blah, yada yada yada. Yeah, I know this because my next door neighbor is still in contact with him.
With Mr. A? That neighbor?
Yes. No, that.
No. Oh, a good neighbor. Okay.
Yeah. The one that we went to high school with.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I know we shouldn't say his name, because he's extremely private and doesn't even want her to have his phone number, even though he texts her from his phone number. What'd you say?
He tried to contact me a few years ago and like, hey, can you put in a good word with Becca for me? I'm like, dude, this is like 20 years later. Yeah, and I remember I contacted you about it. You're like, no. I was like, I didn't think so, but like, yeah, people can change.
Well, maybe, but he had sent me these like Facebook messages that, in retrospect, they weren't as creepy as I thought they were. We were both kind of acting creepy. I was very much at the end of my drinking career, but it was like, ew, you're not that young 9th grade guy anymore, reading Great Expectations and helping me make Mrs. Havisham's wedding cake, or study for Mr. Milstead's history class test that was so crazy that we had to have a study group. And sigh.
Milstead. Oh.
I just Mr. A, if you ever watch this, I was completely, totally, and madly in love with you for 4 years, and when you finally got your shot, you made me think you didn't care at all. So I don't understand how I'm the one that got away. Best wishes to you. I hope you have a happy life. So, okay, almost 25 minutes in, and I still haven't asked you.
Oh, I was still like, oh, I've got another one of your boyfriend stories. Crush.
Maybe we'll have a segment called Becca's Boyfriend Stories, where every week we have another Becca boyfriend dramedy.
Yes. You can't do the same with me, because I never had a romantic interest in high school.
You didn't miss anything.
I mean, I did have a crush when I was 16, but he wasn't in high school.
Oh my. Oh.
So anyway, what were we going to talk about?
Okay, well, that sounds like a topic for another week. I was just going to ask you, did you have your shit together this week?
Largely. Not as together as I would have liked, but there's still room in the week to do that.
Okay.
So I'm feeling good about it. I've had a lot of my shit together, not as much as I'd like.
Do you want to share what shit you haven't gotten together yet, but there's still room in the week?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like things are going okay with my parents. I do want to call them both. They're both in the hospital.
That was going to be my follow-up question, was how are your parents doing?
You know, mom's recovering from her surgery, and right when she was about to get transferred to the same rehab facility where my dad is recovering, they tested her for COVID and she's positive. She's asymptomatic, but mom's got COVID. She's not vaxxed, of course. And my dad had tested, I think, like just 2 days before, also asymptomatic for COVID.
Wow.
So he's isolated, so he can't really receive the amount of rehabilitation that he really needs to, obviously. However, guess who stood on his own 2 feet yesterday?
His giant 2 feet to his full height of 6'4", as I saw in your post.
Absurdly huge feet.
That's what it was. Oh, that's awesome.
My dad's just built like a monster. He's like 6'4", and he has hands that are so big he can palm a turkey. Not a live turkey, but like a frozen one out of the, like crane lifted. He's got massive. My dad's a big dude, but he's, he has diminished somewhat, having gone through all he's gone through since January. He was in a coma for 2.5 weeks, and that really knocks you out. So, yeah. But he's doing well. He can use his phone. Watch out, world. He's back on Facebook. So if you're watching this, Dad, I love you.
So for our listeners / viewers, last week while we were recording our episode with Maria, Kate disappeared for a second, and it was because she found out her mom was having a heart attack live on the air while she was recording with us. And she still came back and finished recording because Kate is amazing.
Thank you. I am amazing. That is what it, I didn't know like what else to do.
You didn't even give away a thing. I think I would have been like, guys, I have to stop recording. We'll have to finish this later. And then gone and taken the phone call after I got all those text messages.
Well, no, I had gotten the information earlier in the day that she had
you
gone
knew
to
and
the
you didn't
ER.
even mention to us?
She had gone to the ER with chest pains. So we didn't know if she had had a heart attack, right? We didn't know. And mom and her parents have a history of chest pains. So we were, we're like, it could be angina or it could be a heart attack. We don't know. We're just going to have to wait and like, so it was just a waiting game. We're just like, and I'm kind of desensitized at this point about medical news. I'm like, oh, something else with my parents. That sucks. Okay. But like, it's, I can't get that excited. So like, I was tense. Yeah. Cause I didn't know it was going to but like, because of her history, I thought, well, it's very possible she's just super stressed out. God knows why, she's had a rough year so far. So I'm like, maybe she's just stressed. So then when my dad tried to call and I thought, it's okay, we don't have that much left of the podcast, I'll just call him back. And then my sister called right after that. I'm like, if Rosie's calling too, I better check. So, So I talked to Rosie for a minute. And so mom was in fact having a heart attack and needed a double bypass or something like that. And that happened. So.
Wow. Well, I think you definitely have your shit together. 100%. Yes.
Thank you. We had a meeting, a big conference this week with Dad's hospital people. And I had a conference the day after that with Sam, with my 10-year-old's school about what's going on with him.
Oh man.
He really is Sheldon Cooper, but with like more stubbornness and willfulness than me. So figure that one out.
I already lined up our guest for next week. I don't know her very well at all. She's someone that I work with, and
that'll make it more interesting.
She has her own podcast, and I listened to the first season of it, and we have to have her on. And I think you guys will have a lot to talk about because you both have children on the spectrum. So can't wait
such a spectrum.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear you guys talk about how that affects whether or not you have your shit together and how you define having your shit together when you parent a child on the spectrum.
So much.
Yeah.
So much. But speaking of which, Beck, do you have your shit together?
Why, Kate, thank you so much for asking. I thought about this morning while I was showering for the podcast, because I only shower once a week, seems like.
I did it yesterday.
Okay, it's not that bad. I'm not that much of a garbage person, but I really only like wash the hair once a week, which is good for my hair.
I had to wash
but
the
it
hair.
Doesn't always it's not always good for the way the hair looks. So my hair was pretty nasty this morning. But anyway.
Well, it looks gorgeous now, darling.
What I decided was I have my shit together this week regarding my job. I got 2 things off of my plate that have been on my plate for a long time. The first issue of the newsletter, that's how I know Tiffany, we work on the newsletter together, is done and it's going out today. And that was so much fun. I got to write articles and be creative and find pictures. And I made a listicle with stuff that HR sent me that would have been really boring if I didn't make a BuzzFeed article out of it. And yeah, it was super great. And the other thing was the Federal Register notice that I talked about last week published. And of course, even though everyone looked at it a million times and checked it line by line with me, we still had one little typo that was a very important typo because it affected the way people contacted us. So with lots of help from Manny, who was a guest 2 weeks ago, and
thank you, Manny.
Our IT department, it was fixed like that, and we've already got emails coming in, so everything's good with that. So that's a big relief. However, my house, my yard, everything else just went by the wayside because I was working so hard on these other two projects. Like I was trying to speed run cut my grass yesterday in between meetings and stuff because I knew it was going to rain today.
But my lawnmower broke.
See, and my batteries kept dying and I had to go recharge them. And because I think lawnmowers should be like vacuum cleaners, but cordless. They should be light. They should not make a lot of noise. I should be able to move them around any which way I want instead of just back and forth. It should be like vacuuming. So anyway, the grass is not totally cut and it's already raining on it again. The kitchen, even though I've taken the trash out 100 times and I've done the dishes 100 times, it still looks like a dumpster fire. So I think like the best way I can describe ADHD to people, and I don't know if I've said it here before or not, so sorry if I'm redundant, but it's really important to me that neurotypical people understand this. Having ADHD,
as much as they can.
Right. Having ADHD is like being at a buffet where everyone is supposed to take the same amount of food, but the people with ADHD are given smaller plates. And we have to figure out how to balance the food on our plate. And inevitably something always falls off, or we have to leave it at the table, and you have to pick and choose what you're going to have on your plate each week. And this week I picked work, and the yard and the kitchen fell off, and that's just the way it is.
Good job, though. Way to get your work taken care of. I think that's funny. We were both like doing stuff with our, because like I tried to start that lawnmower, and you don't want to know. I mean,
Do you have the pull start one?
Yeah.
That's impossible.
My next door neighbor sold to me. My next door neighbor, who's a Vietnam vet, who mows his lawn 3 to 4 times a week, and it's like 1/4 of an inch high. Okay.
Oh no.
You know he's having a seizure over my yard because I haven't mown it since late autumn of 2021.
Wow.
In Georgia,
because you don't
doesn't snow.
Yeah.
So it's like, so the front yard doesn't grow a whole lot of grass. It just grows it in clumps. So it just kind of looks like when an old man's losing his hair. It looks bad and scraggly, but it's not terrifying. The backyard is a verdant, beautiful pasture of like 2 feet tall. Like it's beautiful. There are flowers. I love it. Right next to 1/4 of an inch high. It's hilarious. And so I was like, I'm going to mow the lawn today. I've got the energy. I'm not in pain. I'm going to do this. And it wouldn't start. So I finally contacted my lawn wizard because he's amazing and he's going to come and do this today. And my text messages to him are always like, "Oh, thou wizard of the green, my verdant lands have overgrown and I cannot face them." You know, and he always he goes with it. It's such a blessing. But like,
okay.
But
did he get it started?
He hasn't arrived yet. He said he would come here this morning, and this morning is running out of time, pal. So I don't know when you're showing up. But he did request baked goods, so I have made the pumpkin chocolate chip muffins. So because I couldn't do the yard, I cleaned the heck. Like I was not intending to do this. I didn't even have this on my calendar, but a hyper focus kicked in, man. And I cleaned the heck out of that screened-in back porch. Like I swept the screens. I had a mask on. I got we had built up all of these piles of kindling in case we lost power during the snowstorm that didn't happen in February. Yeah, I cleared all that off.
Well, it's just, he probably hasn't shown up yet because he probably realizes the same thing that I'm thinking, and that if you're determined to do something with your backyard, I think you have 2 options. And one is either a sickle or a machete. That's one option.
I have one.
Whack,
my
whack,
son
whack.
has a sword though.
Okay. Or just designated a wildlife sanctuary.
Which is pretty much what I've taken to, except the cats. Because the grass is so long, I think it's become a wildlife habitat for many rodents and birds. And I keep receiving gifts on the back porch and sometimes on the living room floor. And these gifts are not what I want to deal with. Feathers. And my cats just like, they're like, I'm going to eat all the soft parts and leave the head and the spinal cord and the back legs for you, Mom.
Oh my gosh, how kind of them.
you know, and like, it's like every other day I find 1 to 3 gifts on the back porch and I'm like, y'all, I feed you 3 to 4 times a day because I'm a sucker. Why are you doing this?
Wow.
Anyways,
so
way to twinsy up on our yard work.
Absolutely. I love that. Yep. High five. So in honor of the day on which we are recording, Friday the 13th, we decided instead of having a guest, we would talk about Friday the 13th today. And I was wondering,
we're getting to it.
Did you do any research?
I mean, it's one of my favorite topics since childhood. So
you didn't need to.
I did listen to a podcast kind of just like to get my juices flowing while I was doing things.
Yeah.
But yeah. So like my brain is all on the like Friday the 13th mode. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Hence the black. I'm trying to look especially witchy today.
Yeah, seriously, when I saw that top, I was like, that vibe is exactly what I am about today.
It's like kind of Victorian-ish.
Mm-hmm. But with that sort of like that edginess that you get from like a rogue type character.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a witch, but I'm a rogue.
Just enough of a little, like, just enough feminine and just enough of a little like hard edge. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Right.
I wish I could steal it from you. It's a good thing for you that we live so far apart and that I'm probably not your size. Lucky for you.
We're probably not each other's size, but we would probably try to make it work, you know?
So because we're always so prepared and so great at planning, should we decide right now who will go first?
You go first.
Okay. So I did my research, like, I sat down at 9:00 this morning. We record at 10. I did the same thing though. Earlier in the week, I listened to a podcast and because I knew I had heard a podcast talk about this before, and it was the podcast And That's Why We Drink. Shout out to them. They're probably the main reason we're doing this. They were the first podcast I ever listened to.
Oh.
Well, okay. I listened to 1 or 2 podcasts at the beginning of the pandemic sporadically. They were brand new podcasts. They come out once a week. It was the Don't Ask Tig with Tig Notaro, and I don't even remember what else, but And That's Why We Drink is the first one that I got completely addicted to and just marathon binge the entire, like, I don't know how many seasons they have, like 2016 to current day. And now I'm a total podcast nerd because of them, because I was cutting my grass and listening to episode after episode, and I love Em and Christine, and they're the best. And they always just report other people's podcasts and TV shows sometimes, so I think they'll be okay with me doing that too. But then I did do a little bit of research at 9 a.m. this morning, because also, even though I listened to the podcast for the second time, I didn't remember anything that Em said about Friday the 13th. And as I sit down to do the research, Manny calls me on my work laptop, and I think it's a work thing, so I answer, and he's telling me about Freestyle Love Supreme, who he saw yesterday, which is sort of like an improv freestyle Lin-Manuel Miranda sort of thing. And I was like researching and oh, that's really cool. Oh, that sounds hilarious. Oh, that's funny. Well, what did they say then? Like, so I'm glad I'm going first, because
we know how to multitask.
You can really bring it afterwards. All right. So I looked up some information on dictionary.com, and I read an article in HuffPost by Mama Donna Hennes, H-E-N-E-S, Hens, I'm not sure, who is an urban shaman and ritual expert. And I need an urban shaman in my life. And a ritual expert. I mean, so I'm going to look for more of her articles and read them later on. Anyway, dictionary.com told me the origins of the word Friday. And they had an article that was entitled, "Is Friday named after a goddess with a chariot pulled by cats?" And that took me right in, because that is a goddess that I could worship. And you're nodding your head, so it looks like you know. And so people sort of like debate whether Friday is named after Frigga, Freya, or Venus. And I'm sure you know, Frigga is the queen of Asgard, mother of Loki and Thor, wife of Odin, which I know because I'm a big Marvel nerd, not because I'm a mythology nerd, although I do love mythology.
Well, yeah, mythology is ancient and varied, hence the mythology. So Frigga and Freya are kind of the same person sometimes, but
right. And so Freya is known for fertility, gold, death. She's the one with the chariot of three cats. And my friend named her oldest child after Freya, which I think is super awesome. And then Venus is not the actual word Friday, but the word for Friday in other Romance languages. So Venus comes from the Latin word, or the other word for Friday. I'm really bad at this. This is why we just and we don't report on stuff. The words that other Romance languages have for Friday that start with the letter V come from the Latin word dies Veneris, which is day of Venus. So like the Romani word is Veneri and the French word is not gonna do it. You took French. What's the French word for Friday?
That's what I was just trying to remember. Like,
it's spelled Vendredi.
Yeah, I don't process auditory, so
and
sorry.
I think it's, yeah, me neither. I think it's Verde in, I don't know. No,
because Verde is green, but like,
okay. So yeah, so anyway, that's what I got on Friday. It seems like Friday is named after a woman, basically, was my takeaway. Powerful women that are very fertile. And so then when I read up on the number 13 in the HuffPost article, she started out by talking about this patriarchal revolution. And I like, okay, from the Da Vinci Code and stuff, I know like this like lore, which I totally believe in as fact, about the Catholic Church sort of wanting to wipe out other religions and therefore taking things other religions took as holy and making them negative. So I'm assuming that as part of that, they took the number 13, which was very lucky, and they made it evil and bad luck.
Specifically to Norse mythology, yeah.
Okay, and so that gave birth to triskaidekaphobia, which is the fear of number 13.
Good job.
Okay, good. And notable men, there were no women on the list, notable men who suffered from this phobia include Winston Churchill, who wouldn't even sit in the 13th row of an airplane, FDR, Napoleon, and Christopher Columbus. They actually said that Christopher Columbus probably landed on the 13th of the 42nd year of whatever century that was, 1492, 1442. Okay, I'm not a historian. Why do you expect me to remember the date? But anyway, it was probably the 13th and they changed it to the 12th because they knew that he would be upset that it was the 13th.
Don't look at me, man. I'm numerically dyslexic.
So the Judeo-Christian religion, i.e. the Catholic Church, says a lot of bad stuff happened on Fridays. For instance, Eve offered Adam the apple on a Friday. But Kate, did Friday even exist in the Garden of Eden?
No, it did not.
No, it didn't. Because if it's right, and if it's paradise and everything is so perfect there, Friday wouldn't exist because then Monday would exist too, and we all know everyone hates Monday.
Exactly.
All right.
That's excellent logic.
There's no Mondays in paradise, so there can't be a Friday either. What, was it all Fridays? Okay, that's why everything in the Garden of Eden happened on a Friday then, okay? Everything. When I meant to look up the creation story to see what God created on Friday, I think it was animals, right? Because man was the last thing he created, and that was Saturday, and Sunday he rested. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I didn't look it up.
It's symbolism that has to do with Hebrew gematria and not about the days of the week.
Oh, absolutely. Correct. Yeah. Correct. But I just figured if we're going down this Judeo-Christian rabbit hole, we might as well get it all on there. All the things they say happened.
I can go all the way down that rabbit hole, girlfriend. You just give me a shot, but I don't want to interrupt. So pray continue.
Well, Adam was expelled from paradise on a Friday. He repented on a Friday and he died on a Friday. And I'm wondering, did all of these Adam and Eve things happen on the same Friday? Or like, did it take a while? Like, did God have like a bureaucracy?
Full day.
Did he? Yeah, either it was a really full day or like God has like this bureaucratic system where angels have to submit reports that have to be reviewed by their superiors before it gets to God. So it took like a full week for God to kick Adam and Eve out between the Friday. Yeah. And then Good Friday, of course, is the most notorious biblical Friday, is the day that Jesus died for our sins so that we could have eternal life, ye so who shall accept God's only son. I don't know, John 3:16, whatever.
Bless him.
So that's all the stuff the Judeo-Christian patriarchal revolution tried to associate with Fridays. That
There's
didn't even exist when all these things happened. Oh, I cannot wait to hear your full list of them. Is it true that the death card is the 13th card in the tarot deck?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, cool. So Friday is a made-up concept. Just like gender, it is a social concept.
Everything's a made-up concept.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a Friday. Yes, it's not a scientific, like, it's not gravity, it's not the sun, it's not something that actually exists. But the way that the calendar was designed, there are more Friday the 13th than any other day of the week and the 13th day of the month.
Imagine that.
Yes.
We should have stuck to the lunar calendar. But no, that was too matriarchal. We had to go to the solar calendar.
So the way the solar calendar is designed is that every 400 years it repeats. So every 400 years, there are 688 Friday the 13th.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
2012 had 3 in 1 year, I think. All right. I think 2020 had a bunch too, of course.
Of course it did. I'm
yeah.
sure it did.
But they were probably the best days of that entire shit show of the year. Yeah. All right. Here are my notes. I put, what is the patriarchal revolution? So I can't wait for you to fill me in more on that. All right. So now getting to the good stuff about why the patriarchal revolution tried to demonize the number 13. 13 is essentially the most female number. It is the number, it's the average number, not for me anymore with my declining hormones, but it is the average number of menstrual cycles in a year. It is the average number of annual moon cycles, and that makes it the number of blood, fertility, and lunar potency. And as you alluded to earlier, the moon is associated with femininity and the sun is associated with masculinity. So it's the lucky number of the goddess. And in China and pre-Columbus Mexico and ancient Israel, it's a very important, significant lucky number. And it is still the age at which boys are bar mitzvahed in the Jewish religion. And in the Wiccan religion, there's the number 13 is a good number. And like, for instance, there's 13 members of a coven, at least in ancient Wiccan days. I don't know, from like Charmed and the Craft movies, I always thought it was 3 or 4, but that's probably just because they didn't want to cast 13 teenage girls. It would have been too much dialogue.
Too much to do.
The Egyptians believed there were 13 stages of life, and the last stage was death, which led to eternal life. So it was the best stage of life, the 13th stage. And Sabbath, like going back to Friday, Sabbath still begins at sunset on Fridays. The Friday is to honor in the ancient Jewish faith. I don't know about now, but in the ancient Jewish faith, it was to honor the female aspect of God. And that's why the Sabbath started on Friday and why Friday was seen as a holy day. And
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. And Islamic also, the Islamic Sabbath day also is Friday in the Islamic world. So that's everything that I very quickly looked up, but it confirmed my worst fears that men wanted to do away with all other religions, and all the other religions held men and women as equals. So the men of the new religion had to make women less than, because they wanted to pull everybody away from those other religions. So. Well,
yeah, I mean, that's and that's how you conquer, like you can conquer through violence, but if you want to hold that land, you have to conquer them to your faith. You have to change their way of life to your way of life. And that's how it's done. And the Norse religion specifically was big on female power. And so, and it's really hard to tell where Norse mythology leaves off and Christian mythology starts, Christian doctrine starts, because most of what we have is recorded by Christian monks, and so they were always trying to, they could never decide what to do with Loki. They're like, demonize him or make him Jesus. We're not really sure. So like they were always like switching it up, and we're like, maybe you should all get together and have a conference on what you want to do with Loki, because it's confusing. And Frigga, because she was like the goddess of sex and the goddess of fertility and female power, and she didn't accept power from Odin, she went out and got her own power, often involving having sex. Go girl. They like tried to make her a whore. Christianity did, but like Christianity wasn't picking on Norse mythology specifically. They picked on every mythology that they were trying to take over, because that's how you win the people over. But the cool thing about Norse mythology, about Frigga / Freya specifically, was that she would show up in Norse countries. They were still very much doing things according to their customs and their myths and beliefs, even as Christianity was being adopted. And women would gather together in groups of 12 and to invite in the goddess as the number 13. So that's why 13 and Friday were both like big in Norse mythology. And in Judaism, there's 12 is a big, so okay, quick thing on gematria. This blew my mind when I learned this. Okay, so I'm gonna try to be quick.
Take your time.
I get excited. Okay, so like so Hebrew gematria is this thing where like all of the Hebrew letters are also numbers. Yeah. And they don't use vowels. Yeah. So like if you spell out your name, and it would only be like B K sound, it would just be B and a K sound, like 2 letters, right? So whatever those numbers are, what they add up to would be like your special number. So like, and they have found stuff like this in Pompeii, where people have written like 12, 13, 9, loves 937.
Oh my gosh.
So that's like a common thing. Okay. So throughout ancient Judaism, right? Mm-hmm. So you can see it all over the Bible, not just when they're using numbers to like spell names or whatever, but certain numbers meant special things. Like 3 meant it comes from God and it's perfect. 7 meant it comes from God, he made it and it's perfect because it's from God. So like when God made the earth in 7 days, 7's not a number, guys. It just means God made it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean 7.
Yeah.
It just means
there were
perfect.
no numbers yet. There were no numbers until men invented numbers, right? People.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's a humanity thing, is making numbers.
I'm going to get all the mathematicians coming at me now, aren't I?
But so there's 3 and there's 7 and there's 4. 4 is a number that always, when you see it in the Bible, always represents the world, because the 4 corners of the world, right? 12 always represented the priesthood. So it meant the religion, it meant the organization of men that took care of the people and like served them and whatever, because 12 apostles go back further to the 12 tribes of Israel.
Wait,
the 12.
How many rings did the men of Middle Earth have? I just want to relate this to Lord of the Rings now. 9. Oh, okay, 9. All right, cool.
So, which is a Norse magic number.
Okay.
Don't get me started on Lord of the Rings, girl. Okay.
Especially because not C.S. Lewis. Tolkien said he wrote it as the Christian mythology.
Did he though? I mean,
or no, British maybe British mythology.
Yeah, it's the British mythology, and it's so strongly influenced by Norse mythology. Gandalf is Odin.
Okay,
cool. He just is Odin. There's just so much. I can go on for hours and hours about Tolkien. Okay, but I will not. So like, okay, so 12 is a priesthood number. There's this bit in, I can go on about Revelations, but there's this bit in Revelations where like there's a specific number of people who get into heaven. It's just like 12 times 1200 or something.
Wow. So
it doesn't really mean a specific number. It just means a lot of priesthood will be in heaven. A lot. A lot. Oh, also, this is one of my favorites. 40, the number 40. Mm-hmm. It just means an adequately long period of time. It's slang. So anytime you see 40 days and nights in the ark, and 40 days and nights in the wilderness, and 40 days and nights,
that's why it reoccurs. It just means a long time.
It means an adequately long period of time. Like Jesus.
How long?
The wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. He was in the wilderness long enough to like meditate and get good with who he was. That's
Noah
it just
and his
means
family
a
were in
while.
the Noah and his family were in the ark long enough to start fighting and hating each
Yeah.
other. And wanted to get off that
while.
damn ship.
It could have been like a week and a half. It could have been like 10 days. I don't know. It was long enough for Noah. That's all he knew. He was like, damn, I am done with this flood shit. So like 12 was like a significant number. So when Jesus, a Jew, had his Last Supper on Friday, therefore the Sabbath, with his 12 apostles, anyone following here?
Yeah.
Right. And so like, I think
yes, it was the Sabbath meal. So it was a Friday. So did they?
It was the Passover. They were celebrating Passover.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyways, so like, I read somewhere that the Catholic Church tried to say that like, well, there were 12 apostles and Jesus, so like Judas was the 13th, and I'm like, Judas who betrayed Jesus was one of the 12 apostles, so Jesus was number 13.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's fine. Do whatever you need to do, Catholic Church. It's fine. And
so
like,
who do they say is the extra apostle then? Is it like Bob?
Bob, yeah.
Yeah, Bob. Bob is
Bob the apostle. Yeah.
And that made you the 13th. Okay.
Vladimir the apostle. That was the that was the unlucky one. Right. And so 13, that's how, and I'm like, and I'm not dissing the Catholic Church. What I mean is when the ancient Christians
right.
were, or rather the ancient conquerors were using their religion to conquer other places, they were like, okay, well, numbers are important to everybody, so we're going to take this number 13 that's sacred to some people, and we don't really care a whole lot about it in Christian or Judaism. I mean, they did care a lot about it, but it wasn't like one of the big sacred numbers, and so like we're going to use that and make it bad, so that makes it bad. Oh, I'm sorry, one more gematria thing.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite things. You know how everybody makes a big fuss out of 666?
Yeah.
Y'all.
Tell me.
Okay. So you know how I mentioned 7 is like a sacred number, it means God.
Right.
And 3 is a sacred number that's like completion, or vice versa. Basically 3 and 7, right?
Yeah.
So 666 is 3 numbers, and it would be 7, but it's like -1, right?
Right.
So it's like, if it's not complete perfection and of God, it's the opposite. So it's like, because there's 3 6s, it's like complete imperfection, the complete opposite of God. So it doesn't mean anyone's going to be having a number on their head unless they want to, and they're just into that, which no shame here. But like, if that's what you're into, but it doesn't mean like we're all getting barcodes on our head, or it's gematria, guys. It's symbolism. And as an English major and an art major, I just get a little riled up about symbolism sometimes. Okay.
Rile on, my friend.
All riled up. I get riled up. So yeah, and people get all upset here. I'm living in Georgia in the Bible Belt. Okay, so like, grain of salt, but like,
I think it's the Bible buckle.
It's the Bible buckle.
Because it's like the end of the Bible Belt.
It's the part where you cinch it really tight.
Yeah.
Like, people get all upset down here if you don't want to take the Bible literally. And I'm like, was it written for Western culture, English speaking people? No, it's using so much symbolism that goes, whoo, because I didn't get it. Like when I was a kid, I was like, yes, there were probably 2 people in a magical garden somewhere. That makes sense. Anyways, and like, it didn't even occur to me that was a symbol, because Adam means man and Eve means wife. I'm sure that's not a coincidence, I'm like, so like, it didn't occur to me either till I took like some really intensive courses later in college. But like, once I did, I was like, oh, and yet this did not destroy my faith. My faith got destroyed much later. But at the time,
I was going to say, because tell us what kind of, didn't you go to a Mormon college?
I became Mormon at 19 because everyone rebels in their own way, and I went more conservative.
Because one cult wasn't enough for you. You wanted two.
No, I needed two, at least two. I mean, you know, and if you want to count Catholicism as a cult, then it's like a nice even three. Completion.
There you go. Completion. Can you count AA as a cult? I know some people who want to keep drinking count it as a cult. I can tell you all the ways that it's not a cult, but since some people think it's a cult, then maybe I've had 3 cults too.
You know, let's say it is, just so we can have completion, you know, because we're complete.
However, they don't separate me from my loved ones. They actually make me reunite with them and have stronger bonds with them. And they don't take my money. Although I do put $1 in the basket sometimes when I remember, but they definitely never actually ask me for money.
Well, then that's kind of a lame cult, if you ask me. No
we
offense.
do have a tradition about being self-supporting, and so, you know, there's this inverted pyramid structure. Cults, I think the pyramid usually has the bigger base at the bottom. Ours is kind of the opposite.
Well, that makes it more demonic if it's inverted.
Okay, well then it's a demonic cult, because the higher up you go in AA, the more people you answer to instead of the less people you answer to. You know, if you work like in the general service office in New York, you pretty much answer to every AA in the world. Every AA in the world has a say about how you do your job. So it's kind of the opposite of a cult, but sure, let's call it a cult. But I digress.
If you're in the cults, it's a cult.
Continue. Tell me more about.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I actually became Mormon right after high school, and when in my last year of high school, I was like, Wicca, Mormon, Wicca, Mormon. You know, and like one of the funny things about the Mormon church, now I'm going to go off on Mormon stuff. One of the funny things about the Mormon church that got me interested is that I made our friend Aaron Wixom cut school with me. He was so terrified. He'd never done it before. I'm like, you have 2 weeks left of your senior year and you've never cut school. Let's go. We're going to a coffee shop. Mormons don't drink coffee, by the way. And I like dragged him out of the school, and our vice principal saw us, and I was like, hey, and he waved back, and Aaron was shitting himself. And we went to the coffee shop, and the whole way there, I'm like, so tell me about the Mormon faith. I'm curious, you know, because I was like, because I was thinking, like, if Jesus organized 12 apostles, then why don't Christian faiths do that anymore? And like, I like the idea of a mother goddess, but I don't want to give up on the father goddess. Why isn't there one of each? You know, and I had like these thoughts I was pondering, and he's like, actually, so the Mormons believe that God has a wife and that they are so at one with one another. Yeah, I know that they're so at one with one another that like they're just
one entity.
They're just one entity because they're so, yeah. And like
other pagan religions believe that too, right?
Yeah. And I thought that was really fascinating. And when I later found out through a scripture study class is that, and now I look back and it seems obvious, but like, okay, what's the plural for a cherubim? For cherub, it's cherubim, right? So what's Elohim? The name of the Heavenly Father. That's a plural.
It is, you're right.
Elohim's a plural, y'all.
Yeah.
Wow. I wonder. So anyway, so I was like, that's really interesting. Tell me more. Because the Mormon church also has 12 apostles and a prophet at the head of it. So I thought that was really interesting. Mm-hmm. So that was what kind of won me over to the Mormon church at the time. And then I learned that Mormons are just like stupid nice. Like they're service oriented and family oriented. And they're like, the Wickham family anyway is like really earthy folks. They're like, yeah, we pray every day, whatever, you know. And I'm like, oh, okay. They were just really cool people, and you know, an extra sacred text was a neat idea, and I thought it was really cool. And like, I'm not Mormon anymore or Christian anymore, but I love them and they're lovely. And I've had so many people say, well, but you're so like feminist and girl power, and like Mormons are so sexist. I'm like, they are, but like not the way you think. Like, it's so silly. Like, and Mormons will tell you this. Like, I was taught, and I was a missionary, and I've been through the temple and all this business. I was taught that like women are naturally Christ-like, so they don't need the priesthood. The priesthood is there to force men to be of service to others.
Wow.
Women
Oh
just
my
do that
gosh.
anyway, and like so they don't need it. And like men need to have like responsibilities kind of forced on them.
Okay, that's a part of the Mormon religion I can get down with.
Right? I was like, excuse me, tell me more. And like,
this is why we think, well, I say we, I don't mean you. This is why people like me think Mormonism is the way it is, because Christian leaders in the United States of America can't let that kind of knowledge get out there. All of them be like, hey, I'm Mormon.
I mean, it's one of these funny things that it's sort of widely accepted that, like, if you want to have a dinner after church on Sunday, don't ask the priesthood. That's the men's organization, because they'll show up with like 5 boxes of cereal and somebody forgot the milk and spoons. And like, if you ask the Relief Society, that's the women's organization, day of, they'll have a 5-course meal and like doilies and like a flower arrangement. They just pulled out of their asses because they can do that. And like, last thing, but the Mormon Church does a general conference that they televise, and it goes on like all weekend, twice a year. Okay. And there's like two sessions on Saturday and 2 sessions on Sunday. There's a 3rd session on Saturday just for the men. It's the priesthood session. And I always was asking my guy buddies, I'm like, what'd they say? What'd they say? Because they do have a women's conference, but the women's conference is the weekend before, and it takes up the whole weekend. It's like the whole weekend is women's conference. And then the next weekend is general conference for the whole church with 1 session for the dudes. And they're like, what's up with that? And they're like, I'm like, what they tell you? They're like, they told us we're not worthy of our women, and that we need to stop looking at porn, and we need to try harder. Like every time. Every women's conference I'd ever been to, it was always like, women, you're doing too much. You're making us look bad. You can relax a little bit and let other people pick up the slack. You're so wonderful. You're the best. Women are the greatest. They are the crowning act of creation. Da 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 da. And I'm like, we are. So,
well, if only they felt that way about LGBTQ plus people also.
I just found out that a young lady recently graduated from Brigham Young University in Utah. I graduated from Ricks College in Idaho, which is now Brigham Young University, Idaho. But this young woman just graduated, and as she received her diploma, she opened her gown and she had sewn a pride flag on the inside.
Good for her. That's pretty awesome. Good for her. That's awesome.
The church does change. The Mormon church does believe in continuing revelation for its people. So I have hope that they're going to come around to it. It's just they're
and
really
it's not like any other, it's not like the Christian religion is, well, there are some, it's spotty with the Christian religion. Let's say that it's spotty.
It's spotty with every religion, really.
Yeah, probably. So
because it's led by human beings and we are flawed.
This is true. I think growing up in the Lamb of God has made me like super semi-obsessed with cults, the way some people get obsessed with true crime when they have anxiety. It's sort of like a catharsis. And so I'm really into all things Mormon, like that show Big Love. I think I've watched it 4 times. I love that show so much. And I know that's not an accurate depiction of Mormonism, but I love that culty
I've never
aspect
watched
of
it.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, it's a niche cult in Southern Utah. It's not how most Mormons live,
but it's a fantastic show. I love that show. And as I started to become more obsessed with Mormonism through that show, my friend Bobby told me years ago that this was happening, and it has now happened this year. This month, the temple in DC is going to be open to the public.
Nice.
Because they've been doing
they've
been doing renovations, so they had contractors in there, so they have to reconsecrate it anyway. So since it's already been defiled, they'll let everybody come in and defile it some more before they reconsecrate it. And I want to go so bad, especially because on your wedding day, we sat like in the visitor center or the parking lot or something because we couldn't go in. I want to go see
Same with my parents. They couldn't go in because I was getting married in the temple.
Yeah. So, well, that was awesome. I love talking about the number 13, Friday, Mormonism, religion, cults, and the temple, and everything else.
So until next week.
Until next week, get your shit together.
Bye.
Bye.